Migrant gets kidnapped in Mexico, warns others to not come to America. Hello everyone, this is Mr. Obvious, bringing you the obvious, and today on msm.com. So, we have this juicy little piece of news. Kidnapped and attacked in Mexico. Migrants are giving up their asylum claims. So what you have in America, the United States, is a simple thing. A lot of people are claiming to be refugees, claiming. And I say claiming because a lot of these people refuse to take asylum in Mexico and countries along the way. In other words, they're literally just economic leeches. They want to skip all the other countries and come straight to America for free shit, to take our resources. If you were really a refugee, if you really just wanted asylum and safety, you wouldn't reject asylum from Mexico, which in the past has offered it multiple times. But these migrants are like, no, I'm not gonna take refuge in Mexico. What are you, crazy? I'm going to America. I'm gonna have burgers. I'm gonna take all the jobs. I'm gonna get the American dream. At the expense of everyone else, of course, but, well, it didn't work out that way for this man. He was kidnapped in Mexico. And, you know, I don't feel sorry for this person. And I'm going to explain why as we read this story. So this article is by Sylvia Foster Frau. Oh, let's read. David's story begins and ends in Retejuluyu, Guatemala. He left his hometown August 2nd with hopes of a good paying job and better medical treatment for his son's crooked broken wrist. Oh, you know, it didn't take much research to look up Guatemala, and you know what I found? Guatemala is a socialist country. They believe in a universal right to healthcare. Isn't that funny? Why is it that if socialism works and that if universal healthcare is so good, why is this Guatemalan trying to come to America to take an American job to pay for American healthcare? Isn't his socialist utopia going to fix his son's wrist? Oh my goodness. Isn't it a mystery? Yeah, I think it's obvious. Socialism doesn't work. Universal healthcare is trash. This man is living proof. He returned 52 days later, exhausted, dirty, and more than $19,400 in debt. This is going to stay with me. This is going to stay with me as an experience to not go to the United States. You hear that, friends? Do not go to the United States. Do not come here. It's very simple. Stay out of our country unless you come here through legal channels and you have something to offer society. Otherwise, we're full. Go away. Said David 31. I tell people what has happened to me so they don't do what I did. Good. Tell your story far and wide, as I will tell your story with you. Tens of thousands of migrants who have made the 1,000-mile journey to the U.S. while ignoring all offers of asylum in other countries along the way, which is how you know that they're economic parasites in search of refuge, more like in search of free shit, have been sent back into dangerous Mexican border cities while they await court hearings on the U.S. side. Well, isn't that a little elitist? Mexico's a rather developed nation. Sure, it's corrupt. Sure, it has a bunch of cartel. Sure, it's not the best place on earth. But it's certainly not terrible either. Isn't that insulting? While they await court hearings on the U.S. side, after months in limbo, a lot of them are returning home. Their dreams of a better life here dashed by the Trump administration's Migrant Protection Protocols program. Good. Boo-hoo. I'm crying a river. At the Good Samaritan shelter in Nuevo Laredo this month, David and Eden, his 10-year-old son, said they were repeatedly kidnapped by gangs and detained by the U.S. Border Patrol. I'm scared. I'm scared that something is going to happen to my son. Maybe you shouldn't have brought him then. Maybe you should have stayed in your backwater socialist country. Mostly for my son, said David, sweating through the red shirt he'd worn since he left Guatemala. He asked that his last name not be used. As long as God has given me the gift of still being alive, it's better I go back home to my family. Yeah, you should have never left. His wife and 6-year-old son had stayed in Guatemala. Over 2 months, she sent thousands of dollars in ransom. 2 gang members who kidnapped David and Eden, placing the family deep into debt. So, I don't know how much money they actually sent, but as far as I know, they use American dollars. See, this is an American dollar, $19,000 in debt. So I'm going to assume that the thousands they sent in ransom we're American dollars worth. Otherwise, they need to write better articles. Either way, even if it's their own currency, this person had thousands of dollars in ransom. Their family had thousands of dollars to pay for ransom to gang members who kidnapped David and Eden. They had the money. They were able to get the money. Do these sound like poor people who need to escape their country? No. The migrant said, oh, I'm coming because I want better healthcare and I want a good paying job. That's why he left Guatemala. These are the kind of refugees that are trying to come to America and abuse the system. They are economic parasites. And I will say this and keep saying it because it is true. I'm not a bleeding heart. I'm not a sissy. Unlike a lot of these leftists and Democrats who cry, oh, boo-hoo. You know what? If you care so much, why don't you take these people? Why don't you give them jobs? Why don't you give them money? Why don't you give them housing? Yeah, your own property. You're not allowed to use taxpayer dollars. Use your own resources to take care of these people. Let's see how much of a bleeding heart you are then. There aren't many people who want to keep risking their lives like this anymore, said Pastor Lorenzo Ortiz of Laredo's Iglesia Bautista Emmanuel. He volunteers at the Good Samaritan shelter in Nuevo Laredo. A lot of people decided to go back. A lot. Well, that's good news. That's fantastic. So by August, only 61% of MPP migrants attended their first court hearing, according to the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse nonprofit. By comparison, 84.5% of asylum seekers between last September and May who were not subject to MPP showed up for their first hearing. Lawyers say the high rate of absenteeism among MPP migrants is a combination of their lack of access to lawyers, the fear of showing up at ports of entry at early hours, and the decision by some to abandon their case and return home. I never would have come, David said, while Eden colored on a piece of paper at the shelter. They never told me there was so much danger here. Yeah, that's the real world. That's the real world. Actions have consequences. You gotta put on your big boy pants now. And this is not our fault. It's not my fault. I'm a libertarian. It's not Republicans' faults. It's not the right-wingers' faults. You know whose fault it is? Democrats, the left. Why is it their fault? It's simple. They told all these people, we're going to give free shit to all these illegal people, to all these refugees. Let everybody in. Let them in. We'll give them jobs. We'll give them a nice picket fence. Who cares about our citizens? Who cares about our homeless? Who cares about our suffering and sick? We're going to help all these people all around the world. Come here. Come here, migrants. Come, we're going to save you. So they come. And then they come and get kidnapped by the cartel and who knows who else. And then they have to pay thousands of dollars in ransom. Yeah. Thanks, Democrats. You're such good people. So good. In captivity. Tigrillo. Japones. Nogal. Pancho. Minimi. These were the passwords smugglers gave David as proof he had paid them. He had earned 50 Guatemalan quetzals, or $6.48, a day unloading fruit from trucks. Unable to provide for his family, he and his son left for Houston, where his sister lives. His wife and their younger son waited for him and their oldest son to make the journey first. Well, that's what you get. Blah, blah, blah. He was kidnapped and arrested and held by gang members. And you pretty much know the story. I want you guys to listen to this. David was aware of migrant shelters at that point, and he was desperate to find refuge in the closest one, about 5 blocks away. Papi, I'm scared, Eden said as they started walking. Just start walking. God will protect us, David told him, putting his arm around his son. We'll be fine. They were fine for 3 of the 4 blocks until a group of gang members approached. Eden began to cry. They asked David for his password. He told them, Pancho Minimi. Good, he's with us, they said. And then they kidnapped him anyway. Oh! After more than a week in captivity, David's family in Guatemala paid the kidnappers $15,000 to free them, never leaving again. Eden still describes the U.S. with one word, beautiful. Now that's what you all get. Stay out of the country. Stay out of the country. Live with the consequences of your actions, of your countrymen. Vote for a better country. Make your country better. Stop trying to come over to other countries and leech. I'm sick of it. I'm absolutely sick of it. If you don't want to get kidnapped, if you don't want to have to pay ransom, do not come. I am telling this to people for their own good. Do not come. It is not a safe journey. It is no place for children. It is unsafe. Do not come. I saw my 6-year-old son. He came running toward me crying, "Poppy, Poppy," and I hugged him. David said from Guatemala. He said, "Are you going back?" And I said, "No, I'm never leaving again." And there you go. On December 4th, a judge in San Antonio is scheduled to call out David's and Edith's names during their first scheduled court hearing, but neither will be there. I wish, David said, we had just stayed here. That's all there is to it, folks. That's all there is to it. It's clear that this is the right message to be sending, that you shouldn't come to America because there are dangers, and most likely, you don't actually have a right to be here. If you don't come through legal channels, just don't come at all. But that's merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? What do you think about the kidnapping? And, well, what do you think about the situation? Be sure to let me know. As always, if you want to support this channel, as we have been completely demonetized, I'm not talking yellow $sign. I'm talking no monetization, no ads, no revenue whatsoever. So if you want to support the channel, you can join me on Patreon or Subscribestar for as low as $1. Doing so will give you access to Fight Club, a private Discord server. Remember to set up your Discord account with Subscribestar or with Patreon. Otherwise, I will send you a link. But remember, the whole process is automatic. If you just, in your settings, attach your Discord account to Patreon or to Subscribestar, and then you'll get invited automatically. As always, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.